Welcome to another episode of Shock Talk. We have a special guest today.
Not me.
You're a very special guest.
Not that special.
Yeah, you're special. Cameron Brantz, Class 11 driver. Welcome.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to share, the stories I have and the experiences.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Class 11, I mean, that's a real man sport, right? From what, from
Yeah.
what's,
Yeah, I like to think so.
yeah. You don't have 30 inches of travel. You
No.
have 4.
Yeah, about 4, yeah.
Right.
He eats the most Advil after a race by class.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Medical bills.
Yeah.
So
Your
it's-
co-payments.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if you're not peeing blood after one of your races, you didn't race hard enough.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. So how did your journey begin in Class 11?
Well, we were actually started building a 2000 truck back when late high school time. And then we went to one of the MORT races at Glen Helen, and we were watching them race, and we saw the Class 11 guys going around, and we just saw how much fun they were having. And you'd see them wide open throughout the entire course, and you just don't let off. And and these guys are going over this hump 5-6 feet in the air, just wide open, and you'd land and just get back on the throttle. And it just, every time they come by, they're giving us one of these, and they're shaking their fist, and the horn's going off, and you can just tell how much fun they were having. And immediately it switched my brain. I was like, I want to do that. And we weren't bug guys. I didn't grow up around bugs. I grew up, with the truck and things like that, which most people do.
Right.
And so it's a completely different setup, but for some reason it just caught my attention. Immediately wanted to do that. 2 weeks after that race, we went out and bought a bug.
But how old were you when Dust to Glory came out?
Oh,
he wasn't
I don't
born.
think I was born yet.
You weren't even born yet.
No.
Yeah, so that was not a factor.
No, I mean, I've seen it.
Yeah,
But no, it was when I was younger. My dad, I had a motorcycle and I raced motorcycles, and then we'd go out to the desert and things like that. And so I got into the off-roading in that way, and kind of just never looked back. I went to school in Michigan. When I came back, I kind of started over and wanted to do some racing.
Ann Arbor or the other one?
The other one,
Yeah.
State.
Yeah, I remember when the Dust to Glory video came out. I was working at a retail facility, and we come to work and we open at 9, close at 6, and there was the release date, so there was a line of people
Really?
that was in line to buy the Dust to Glory video
Oh, because
for
they-
$29.99.
You couldn't stream it back then. You
Yeah.
had to buy the
And that was like back in 05 or 06 or something.
Yeah, they shot it in 03. I remember being at the race.
Yeah.
and watching them shoot that and talking to those guys and stuff. That was a big deal.
It was huge. It was huge for the sport, for the industry, for the sport.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
It's crazy how resilient a bug chassis is, huh?
Yeah.
It
surprised me. That's for
yeah.
sure.
It's so crazy how you can take it. It reminds me of a 2-wheel drive Beam Granger.
Mhm.
It just takes everything you throw at it.
Yeah.
Like as long as you have like a glove box full of fan belts, like a Volkswagen Bug is your friend.
Yeah.
Does everything.
Yeah, we have the fan belts strapped on the back of the car,
Yeah.
right next to the motor, just ready to go. I mean, a few races ago, we had to swap one out. It's consistent.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. I forgot who put it out, but there's a new movie. It's Dust to Glory. I think so. Yeah, they came out about a year ago. It's kind of Dust to Glory, esque. It's a pretty cool movie to see how the bugs came about, and it's strictly about VWs, and then it goes back, the 60s, 70s, and then it shoots up to today, and they have video footage from our races 2 years ago at Glen Helen in there. So
Yeah.
it's pretty neat.
There's some great footage of our old president Doug Robertson racing class 5s in that.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
pretty
Back
He
in
was
the-
fast.
Yeah, very fast.
Yeah, 516. He was that's when back in the day when the Class 11 drivers were like, hey, we need a little more travel, so we're going to create another class.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all have watched Class 11s do their thing, and we all have gritted our teeth when they come off a jump. Tell us, how does it really feel in there? Like, I know that when I look, I'll see like a Class 7 truck blowing through something, and it's like, and then I'll see a Class 11, and I'm like, like
Yeah.
like if I'm in the back seat.
It's it's one of those cars where if you let off the gas, it's all about momentum. So you see a whoop section, you really can't let off. It's just you hold the throttle down and hope you don't get kicked or you don't flip or you hit something funny, because you lose that speed, you're losing lots of time later down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So you just hold the throttle down and pray, and just it hurts sometimes. Definitely, you'll come off some big bumps, but if you ever ride in one, you've been in one, it's smoother almost than you would think.
Yeah.
But it's still very abusive on your back. Like I have a seat cushion for like a chair, like a desk chair, and I put that. It's about 4 inches thick. I put it on top of my seat. And
It's like a Manx car, you know. It's like a Manx car. They just very little travel, all momentum, all finesse.
Yeah.
And for the most part, you're going through the same terrain as all the other guys.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that was intentional in the original design, that it would work well off-road. It probably not, right? Probably it was all just inexpensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably just inexpensive, and they realized later down the road
and robust, and then it just so happens that there's quite a bit of travel, and it actually works. So, so what are the rules? You got to start with a stock.
Yeah, so you need the stock pan is realistically how it goes. Stock pan, and then your shell. And then you need to keep your front beam is fairly stock. You can weld around the seams and swap out the ball joints. I know a lot of guys run lowered ball joints, so they call them to get a little bit more travel out of them.
So is this some Smokey Yunick stuff? You know who Smokey Yunick was?
No, I don't.
It's a NASCAR mechanic that figured out all kinds of ways to kind of work the system without breaking the rules, like make the roll cage hold oil and to cool and stuff like that.
Yeah, you got to be smarter than the guys in tech.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. And I know all the guys, the cars are so similar in a lot of ways that obviously there's guys doing things that you know nothing about. And there's tricks and tricks to the trade, I guess. And that little bit makes you so much faster.
So stock travel.
For the front, yes.
For the front.
You're stuck. And then rear, it's technically stock 18 inches between the upper shock mount and the bottom shock mount, and that's when
eyes.
Yeah, the shock mount eyes.
But the body can go past that.
Yes, and that's
one of our tricks.
Yes, that's one of the tricks I heard you guys may have came up with.
Yes, we did. So the side mount.
Yep, the side mount. And that's stuck because is it a 12? I think it's a
12 inch.
A 12-inch shock, smooth body shock that you're putting on these cars. Before it was what, a 6? You know, if that
5.5.
5.5, yeah, stroke shock that's on this car. So
and that's how we met.
Yeah,
because of that 5.5 inch travel
exactly.
shock. Yeah.
We
were like, I can't. My name's Cameron Brantz. I can't make this work. Can you help?
Yeah, you do. In some form or another. We originally we had the 7100s with the shock mount on the top and on the bottom, and we ran that for one race. And one race in, we're like, we can't hold pace with this shock. We need to upgrade. And we go around looking, and we see all the shocks on all the other cars, and they're running these 12-inch stroke shocks. How do they do this? And you see the top of the shock sticking out of the car, And that's when you see that shock mount welded, and that's when I messaged you, Junior, and you got me set up. And then ever since then, it's a world difference because we're cycling almost 12 inches of travel here now.
It's quite good.
It's for a VW bug, it's a lot with stock, mount location or stock mounting lengths.
Yeah.
It's a lot,
and we used to use the old Blackhawk reservoirs that were what diameter?
83 millimeter.
83 millimeter diameter that looked really cool, and we eventually ran out of those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hadn't made them since
the
90s.
Ran out of those, so now we use what's on yours, which is the new Blackhawk UTV reservoir, which is like 15 inches long, fend aluminum, 60 millimeter, with a DSA at the end of it. Whereas the old Blackhawk was ACV.
Oh yeah.
So it had the ACV valve, the anti-cavitation valve. So it had a shim stack where the oil was entering. So you can revalve that for how much flow or displacement you wanted to go back into the reservoir, and how fast you wanted.
So the new one's probably cool better than those did.
Yeah.
I don't know. Finned as opposed to giant diameter.
Yeah. I mean, they look cool too. So
that's
another thing.
They do look cool.
It's cool because you still see those classic Bilstein Blackhawks on some of the race cars out at some of these races. Some guys swear by them and they love them, and you'll just see they're so beat up, but they don't want to change shocks because they love them so much. It was such a great shock.
Shout out to Eric Gonzalez. He's the guy that races the 516 car that has, I think I just sent him the last set of eyelets that we had for Black Hawk.
Yeah.
And I told him, strap that thing, because if you stretch these ones, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
But he swears by them.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
What's the secret sauce in the tune? Do you want them super firm? Do you want them loose? Do you want lots of rebound? Or how much fooling around do you do with that?
I've been fooling around a little bit. I actually want to make some minor adjustments with the valving on it. Probably after the mint. We'll see how that goes. But the cars want a buck because all the weight is in the rear. Yeah. And so in general, you see the Class 11s go through and you'll see them hit someone else, you can hit something. And every Class 11 car just wants to kick. And so realistically, it's minimizing the kick and minimizing how harsh your bottom out is almost. And you want that high rebound, of course.
Can't use bump stops.
Nope, or no bump stops. You basically...
At least not hydraulic bump stops.
Yeah. Well,
so you got to be very... You got to... I think tuning a Class 11 car is pretty difficult. So do you want... Do you want to tune main piston or DSA is kind of where we'd be at, because I think trying to tune out chassis characteristics in a shock makes it tough, because then you're going to add all this compression valving that's going to hurt you in some spots, but help you on that kick, like that kick is, like you said, it's evident in every Class 11. That's because of the wheelbase. So you got that super short wheelbase and that front tire hits the obstacle at just about 37 miles an hour. So it's like the rear hits so soon after that it just bucks it, and yes, can some tuning help with that? Yeah, but how was that going to affect it in the low speed choppy stuff? You know what I mean? So on yours, we would probably retune the DSA so that you could get a little more out of it. And then maybe at a pit stop, you can tell them, hey, tone down the high speed or something. You know what I mean? That way, it's not affecting the main piston.
Yeah.
Right. But I didn't even notice how much you talk with your hands until we got on a podcast together.
Well, I'm talking with my hands. Well, anyhow, so moving on.
Garrett's just wincing every time you slap the table. Why don't you just knock the mic over?
Yeah. I mean, it's just aggression, man. Aggression and passion all at the same time.
Yeah.
So yes, could we get that better? Yeah, we will get it better. But it's a matter of you can't just over-tune a main piston and expect the displacement's going to work well and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because you can overvalve a shock very quickly.
Yeah.
But we'll work together on that and share videos back and forth, or maybe I'll come out to a race and we'll see what it looks like and then throw something at it.
Yeah.
Are you getting into them yourself, or has Nathan been working with
I
you?
believe Nathan's been the one tearing them down so far. I do want to start tearing them down myself and kind of learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
I've rebuilt shocks before, like on a Razor and some King 3.0s and stuff, so I can do it. Yeah. A lot of heat. But
yeah, it's not rocket science. And
yeah,
with yours, it's so straightforward. I mean, you have a rebound shim stack, you have a compression shim stack, you have a main piston, and then you have a DSA that can be adjusted,
Yeah.
And sometimes just taking maybe adding a little bit more valving on the DSA to where the clickers are more effective. Maybe that'll get you through what you need to get through,
Yeah, I agree. And I know if I was to take the shock apart, I don't know exactly what valve or what shims I need on either side, rebound, compression, to make it do what I want. I'm afraid I would go too large, too small, and you guys are the experts, and that's generally why I bring it to you. And if I say I need something, you guys know exactly what to do with it. And if I did it, I don't want to mess it up. I know it's all trial and error, but maybe one of these days we can go through one. And
yeah. Doug, I think Doug is the one who typically builds yours.
Doug's been here for 150 years.
Yeah, on and off, for about 150. Yeah,
he knows what to do.
Yeah.
All right.
So yes, we'll get you in one day and we'll walk you through that. Shims, I mean, those are 8ID shims. They all measure and we could tell you effectively what shim affects high speed, low speed, so on and so forth, and that way you can get into them, throw some stuff at them, test them, see how you like them, and
I think that'd be great because I do want to test the different high rebound, low low compression. I just want to go around testing a
Yeah.
bunch of different things because I know some guys like it different ways. So there's not one perfect tune for everybody.
Huge variation in what different drivers prefer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we're still, like I said, we just redesigned the whole back of the car. B-pillar and back, so the car drives a lot different, a lot stronger.
Yeah.
a
Is
lot
that because you
sturdier.
caught on fire or but?
No, we had another during the powder puff race we had some malfunction in the rear of the cage and ended up we had a ton of flexing in the cage. So the way I designed it, we had some flex to it, and we ended up cracking around where the shock mount is. We didn't have enough support where that shock mount was, and so it kind of blew it off, cracked it a little, and so after that, I knew we were having a bunch of flexing in the rear. I said, forget it, let's just rebuild the whole back half and start new, and it's a lot stronger now. And I know we went testing in Oxio about 3 weeks ago. We put about 40 miles on the car, just hammering it, and that thing worked super.
How much does the car weigh? Do you know?
I haven't weighed it yet. I think we're around 1,700, 1,800, depends. A lot of the car, it depends on the fuel cell. Ours is a desert setup, so we run a little bit heavier. I know the short course guys, they run a smaller fuel cell, smaller tires, but smaller package.
Is that lighter than a UTV?
Depends on the UTV, yeah.
Yeah, like a full race UTV can get up to like 2,600 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the world we're in now.
Yeah. They're light, but we're realistically only getting about 60 horsepower to the ground.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, they're light. I mean, 60 horsepower for how light that is still pretty decent, and we still go pretty good. But
what are the rules on the engine? So 1,600?
1,600 dual port. It depends how you set up your carburetor. You're allowed to run the 44 mil carb on the top if you run a low compression motor. But if you want to
run any compression.
Sorry?
You can run any compression you want?
Not if you run the 44 Webers. If you run the 44 Webers, you're required to run, I'm not sure if it's 8 to 1 or 9 to 1. There's a number it is, but you have to run below that compression. So it's the low comp motor, which everyone prefers and everyone pretty much runs it. You get a lot more power out of the low comp and the 44 Weber carb than you do out of, let's say, a high comp motor with the whole, 34 pick carburetors. So
more reliability too.
Yeah, more reliability.
Do you ever wear out a motor, or is it so under stress that you can just hold it wide open to race all season?
We generally try to get about a season out of it. We've been through 2 motors, unfortunately, already. Both of them catastrophic, blew a rod through the through the case. More it was a way of the design where we had our cooler set up, so we were running hot the whole time. It was a dead zone for air, and we realized that pretty late. After we swapped everything out, we even put a larger cooler in. We didn't know what it was, and after our second motor, I just put this big cooler right behind our heads. So we have this massive derail cooler right in between our heads, pulls air, and that pretty much solved our problems for overheating.
First, I was thinking cooler for beer.
No, that's you have that.
Yeah, that's side by side stuff.
Oh yeah,
that's side by side.
Yeah, there's a guy that has beer koozies mounted to the top of his car.
Yeah,
that's for after the race.
Class 11 guys, they have IVs for that.
Oh
yeah, for IVs and catheters. It goes in and out, in and out.
Yeah. So it's been quite an experience, and the motor package definitely, depending on who builds your motor. I mean, the motors helps a lot because the cars are so light, and they're all so similar. So motor package does a lot for us.
Yeah.
Motor package and tire size.
Yeah. What tire size are you running?
We're basically, it's a 7.0-15, which is about a 31, I believe, plus or minus a little bit. So that's our desert tire. Short course, we run a lot smaller.
But then you effectively have to change the gearing, right? Because it's crazy how tire size affects your gear ratios in that car.
Restricted to one set of gears, one ratio.
Yeah, we're restricted to the stock gear ratio, and so that has a lot to do with everyone picking their tire size. And so for the desert, you want big, but you don't want to go too big
because then you lose all the power.
You're losing power.
Do it with tire.
And that's why you see on the short course cars, they run the little skinny, almost street tires, and then they groove them because they're so light.
And that's why they sound like trophy trucks, is because they're so wrapped out.
Yep. You're just revving them high, and then in the desert, you're bogging them a little bit more because you have the big tires. And short course, I guess momentum's still a big deal, but in the desert, it's realistically all about momentum because you don't have much low end with those big tires.
And transaxles, all stock stuff?
In a way, yeah. Weddell makes an 091 kit for us that's legal. Generally, I'm not sure exactly the rules on that, but you're not allowed to run a bus trans. You're not allowed to change the gearing. But there's a specific 091 Weddle kit that will run with your stock pinion, and that's why it's legal. Because I think with another 091 kit, you have to change out the pinion as well to run it. So
imagine the stock Volkswagen Beetle just racing the 1,000. Imagine what car manufacturer today puts out a vehicle.
None. And if you get back to 1959, nobody else.
Yeah. No one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible car. What it is, for how cheap those things were, or to get.
It's so robust.
Other cars, like something like a Raptor that you would say is the other off-road truck. But yeah, it's you buy these things for what, $1,500?
Yeah, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID. Now they're $3,500, $6,500 for a beat up one.
Can you tell the catch on fire while racing story?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. It was our night race. We were all set up. We did 3 laps of pre-run, and we were ready to go for this race too. And we had good pace, and we were coming around into the pits, and all of a sudden, I look over. I'm losing a little bit of power, and I'm looking at the
the oil temperature, and it shot through the roof. Like, this thing is pinged, and even if this car was overheating, that's still too hot. I mean, this was pinged to the end. And so I'm like, what is going on? And I'm all confused. We start to lose power, and it was the car starving of fuel. And so I thought the fuel pump went out, and I don't know what the heat was about, but it's funny because we were actually making a pass at the same time we were on fire. So it's in a video, and you can see him pass us back in the video while we're on fire. But we get by him, and then, I didn't know we were on fire until the whole car was completely stopped. We're dead stopped. I had no idea. So I'm like wondering what's going on, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we start seeing some smoke, and me and my buddy Zach in the passenger seat look at each other, and we're like, what is going on? We stop, and we're like, holy crap, we're on fire. Because you can't see. You have this neck brace. You can only see just straight forward and in your mirrors. And in the mirror, you can't really see your motor. And so we had no idea. And then we look over, we smelled a little bit, and we could see a little smoke. And we see guys running from the spectator area down with fire extinguishers. And we're like, holy crap, we're on fire. So we jump out and realize, there's a huge ball of flames behind the car. And we had no idea until we were completely stopped and pretty much out of the car.
How much damage did it do to the car?
Surprisingly, not as much as you would think.
Burning off.
Yeah, so what happened was the fuel filter, at least what we believe, is the fuel filter cracked. We had those plastic clear ones that pretty much everybody runs. Mm-hmm. And so that must have cracked or hit something. May have been a bad one.
It's always the 50-cent part.
Yeah, literally. And it started dumping fuel onto the motor, and eventually it just caught fire, and then it burnt up our fuel line, because we weren't running a stainless line at the time. Burnt up the fuel line, and then that's why it starved of fuel. Otherwise, I would have kept driving. I had no idea. So that's how that happened, and everyone got out, and everyone down with fire extinguishers, blowing off the car. And realistically, the only damage that happened was the electrical and some of the fuel lines. The stainless steel lines that we had for oil held up, but I replaced them anyway just because they're, at that point, you might as well. The motor was in great shape. Honestly, some of the bushings and little things like that, some of the couplers and stuff were burnt up. So I replaced a little bit. Carburetor, rebuilt the carburetor because the gaskets on that were burnt up. Just little gaskets, things like that. But it, surprisingly, not a ton. We fired the motor back up after we replaced it. The thing runs flawless.
That's the nice thing about those Volkswagens too. It's like you could pull the motor out in no time.
Yeah.
Put it back in no time. Everything's like right there at your disposal. Mm-hmm. Take the hood off, and you just have access to everything.
It's awesome. We had that car running in less than a week because we had a show to go to up in Barstow for the Drea Powder Puff race. They had a pre-race event that we went to, and so after the fire, I was like, oh, there's no way we make this. And then I started looking it up, figure out the damage we had. We can make it. It's a lot of long nights, but yeah, within a week we had the car driving again. So it's easy to access everything, and everything comes out. You can pull the motor out within 10 minutes. Yeah. I mean, it's 4 bolts and your throttle cable, and that's realistically
1 plug.
Yeah.
One electric.
Yeah. The oil cooling lines. There's not much to it. And then your trans, problem is our trans is under our fuel cell. So it's a little bit more difficult, but we've done it.
So we've noticed like an onslaught as of recent of Class 11 guys. Like, what's going on with Class 11? It's like,
I think
it's like a party.
Yeah, I think people just realized how much fun it is, and somewhat budget wise comparable to something obviously like a trophy truck or a 7 truck, something like that. It's how much fun the guys are having for the budget that they're putting out. Granted, it's still not cheap, but every time you get out of your car, the whole group of Class 11s, like you end up and they all park next to each other and they all talk about the race. And yeah, everyone hangs out after the race. We all pit next to each other. We pit with each other. We have guys will give other teams our tires and they'll be remote pit. And they're like, hey.
Are all the rules the same across the sanctioning bodies?
No.
So they never quite are.
No, they're trying to standardize it, but the score series allows a little bit more. I believe they're allowed to run a 5-lug pattern on their wheels where we're stuck to the stock 4. Yeah. They're allowed to add a crossbar on their front beam, I believe, to strengthen it up. Just little things for strengthening that the Moore series and the series in California are trying to keep more stock, because the more you let happen, the more money you got to put into it and the more time you got to put into it when they're trying to keep it as stock as possible.
Yeah.
I do notice that, like, to touch on what you said, I do notice that the camaraderie in Class 11 is far superior than any other class of racing.
Yeah.
Like you guys, like you said, you guys help each other. You guys count on each other. You guys borrow each other's parts. You guys give each other parts. Yeah. There's really no other class of racing.
Yeah. I've never raced like in a car, another class, but from what I've seen, it's something else. Like we gave an alternator away. We got an alternator from somebody. And this is like, free. No one's paying anything, it's just, you're just giving these parts away and everyone, but you get it in return. So you go to these races knowing, you're going to help each other out and everyone's going to do whatever they can to get to the finish line. Because in general, a Class 11, the finish rate isn't as high as, other classes. So everyone's just trying to help each other get to the finish, and we're throwing people parts. And
time limit is always the issue at score. But is it the same with the other series?
Yes and no. Generally for us, we haven't had an issue with time necessarily, because we do run the same courses, but they'll lower our laps. So we don't run the same amount of miles as the score race. So let's say for the Mint 400, the unlimited trucks and all the unlimited classes are doing the full 400 miles, right? And then we're only doing about 130 of 140 miles. We're only
140 miles in a Class 11.
It's like
feels like 1,000 miles.
Yeah, but that seems like cruel and unusual punishment, doesn't it? To make the time limit so close, you're out there punishing yourself, and
I think the whole goal of Class 11, correct me if I'm wrong, is just to make sure you don't overdrive the car.
Yeah. Yep.
You got to keep that thing together. Yeah. Like if you're gonna win a race, the goal in Class 11, in my opinion, is to race 80%, 100% of the race, and not 100%, 80% of the race.
Yeah, definitely. And it's easy to break the car. Realistically, is what it is. In a way,
as robust as it is, that you can break it.
If you just, like I said it before, you just kind of hold your throttle down, but you see a big rock, like big rocks will just obliterate the car. It'll bend your beam and
pick your line.
Yeah, so it's very picky on how you pick your line, but at the same time, they'll take a beating, but it's a lot of double track, and so we run the same course as the trophy trucks. So you come through, and that middle hump in the middle is so tall that if you go straight down, your car's gonna get stuck. Yeah, you'll just high center the car. Yeah. And so all the Class 11 guys, you'll see them on these courses, they'll run right tire on that mound, left tire on the top of
which
the
is soft as hell.
Yeah, and the whole time you're just sliding, but if you fall in, you're getting stuck.
Yeah.
And you just can't let off the gas either, because you fall in, you just have to keep it.
And in silt beds, forget about it. You're wide open. Yeah. Like you're
wide open.
You don't have enough power. Like you have better luck walking through a silt bed than getting a Class 11 through there, right? It's not easy. You just wide open the whole time. And
you're just wide open and you're going so slow and the tires are just spinning. You see the motor. Yeah. You're abusing the motor and it's just you see it getting hot and you're like,
silt beds are the worst for Class 11.
You just have to do it. You just have to get through it. It's part of the racing, and it's not great on the car. It is what it is. But it is what it is, part of racing. Yeah. And that's the one thing you just get
all through. The motorcycles, all the trophy trucks, all Class 1 cars, everything's already been through there with 40s on them. Mm-hmm. And here comes the little Class 11 putt, and he's trying to basically navigate holes that the car fits into.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of line choice and making sure you're not hitting those big dips. And the the trophy trucks create some major dips, and the whoops, they just seem to destroy the whoop. So by the time we get through all this stuff, everything's so beat up, and then the side-by-sides create all this chatter. I know you go to Octio, you see that.
Oh, yeah.
Razor chop.
Yeah, you get that. And now there's a lot more razors coming to these races, and in some instances, you'll see some razor chop coming into some of the corners.
So all the low-speed washboard turns into, like, more...
You could figure out how to do away with razor chop. Make a razor not chop. You could make a fortune.
Yeah.
Maybe they like it. I don't know. But they've destroyed so many trails that...
I don't know what it is. Maybe it has something to do with the CVTs they run.
Yeah.
Let's
do away with CVTs.
I think the faster they get and the ability to run the larger tire,
it's just all that horsepower.
It'll get less. It'll get
devil's washboard.
Yeah.
You got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's funny because you see these side-by-sides blowing through there. So you see these Class 7 trucks blowing through there. And then you see the Class 11. It's like, God bless, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want to sponsor your co-payments. You know what I mean? Because between back injuries and urinary tract infections and all that stuff, it's like, Jesus Christ. My buddy Danny Ledesma raced Class 11 for a lot of years, and he used to tell us only real men race Class 11. And then, Class 9, all that. He said only real men race with 4 inches of travel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's something. There's just something about going fast in a slow car that is just so fun.
Yeah.
Because you're wide open the whole time. You're just hearing the motor singing. You just foot to the floor.
There is something to be said for that.
And the whole time you're braced thinking this car shouldn't be doing this. This car shouldn't be doing this, but it's doing it.
Yeah, it does it. I mean, you'll just be wide open through a set of whoops, and and you kind of just bounce off the top, and it's something else. And if you ever get the opportunity to go in one, which I hope you do, it's an experience.
Well, it's going to be tough for me because if I lay down beside a Class 11, I'm a similar size, so it'll be tough. So who's the guy to beat in Class 11?
I don't think you can pass tech though.
Yeah. Who's the guy to beat in Class 11?
I would say the guy that everyone's shooting for to beat right now in the States would probably be Blake Wilkie. Okay. He is the guy. Flamate, he races a lot of the score races down in Mexico. He's been racing the Moore Series. He's been coming to the States. He races King of Hammers. I think he's a great match for Wilkie. Him and Wilkie go at it. They go back and forth. I think their pace is about the same. So if you ever get to watch them two go at it, it's awesome to see them go because they're going so fast. And
what's their secret to the speed? It's money.
If I knew, I'd be going that fast too.
Really?
Money.
It's that
money has a little bit to do with it.
I must agree that watching two Class 11s fight it out is probably the most entertaining thing in racing, in off-road racing.
Yeah.
Because neither are letting up. Mm-hmm. Both at that point are putting these cars through things they would typically not put them through. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's fight for the finish, man.
Yeah, two years ago at KOH when they did the short course and on the infield, and we were up on top of one of the tractor trailers. It was pretty awesome to watch in that situation.
Yeah, the short course is cool. I enjoy doing the short course too.
So how does Cameron Brantz chase down Blake Wilkie?
Keep the throttle down is realistically what it is. At this point, I think with the redesign of the cage and how the car is set up, we've had 2 years to pretty much perfect this car. So we've put a lot of work into it, a lot of changes. Like I said, we weren't VW guys before, so everything we do is new to us for the past 2 years, but we believe we've got something nailed down pretty good. So the next time we race against him, I might be Glen Helen. I think that's probably the next one he does that will be there. That'll be our goal.
And the nice thing of what you said is the exact guy you're chasing down is the most humble person you've ever come in contact with and is willing to help you chase him down.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
That's how Class 11 is. It always has been that camaraderie, you know what I mean? Because you guys are both in the slowest vehicle in the race, and you're trying to hold it together.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And the first time I met him, it just wasn't what I expected. And he was the most down-to-earth, humble guy. And he would come to our pits. Before realistically we ever even met him, he would come to our pits and help us out, ask us questions, see if we needed help. One of his guys, Poppy, I'm not sure if you guys have ever met Poppy. He's one of his mechanics. I talk to him almost more than I do Blake, but he knows everything. drives down from Mexico to come help Blake out, him and his son. And they do a great job. They got a great program. But even Blake, after one of the races, he invited me to his place to help us fix a couple things on the car. He helped us beef up the car and gave us some pointers. So we trailered our Bug to his house with his shop, and he was doing some of the welding. He was helping us out, bending and cutting the tubes, and ton of help. And he's definitely willing to help us get better and get faster. And it's
which is a little different than other classes. Like, you don't see that in other classes because everyone's trying to fight for the win. They know they got a car with 30 inches of travel. They know they're going to get through the race, right? They know this Tisco chassis or this whatever chassis they have is going to make it through the race. It's a robust enough car to get through the race. So you don't see as much camaraderie as you do in Class 11. Now there's more guys like Donnie at Slow Ride. There's the Eisenhower brothers are getting into it now. And I mean, if anyone knows the Eisenhower brothers, they're the most humble human beings on the face of the earth. I mean, they'll hand you their Class 11 if yours breaks, you know, and they're not racing it. So it's good to see that because I contribute this to 80s and 90s off-road racing. You know, and it's all circling back. You got the guys who used to race like Bill Eisenhower, like the dad of Nick. And I mean, these guys all just handed this down to their kids. And now their kids are racing, but they're keeping that same humble platform, which is amazing to see, because when you used to go to races in the 90s, like Class 11 guys were Class 11, Class 9, all these guys were just like, they were so supportive of each other's team, like whatever it takes to get to the finish line. You know what I mean?
100%. And I agree. And I think a lot of it has to do with the passion that we have for it. And every Class 11 driver, builder has to have a lot of passion for the sport. Cause like you say, it's abusive and there's not a lot of money to be made in Class 11. Right. And so you're doing it just for the pure fun, the pure enjoyment and the passion of the sport. And I think Blake and guys, I'm sure Eisenhower's see that too. And they're all willing to help because we all share the same passion and they want to grow the sport and do as much as they can to grow it. And you can see it's been working. Blake's been putting a lot of effort and work into the Class 11 class, and you've seen it grow the past couple of years exponentially. Rage of the River had about 60 cars signed up. Which is
crazy.
It's
amazing.
It's unreal.
Yeah. You never see that in any class, in almost any form of racing. 60 cars is crazy. And especially in a class like Class 11, that's so abusive. Everyone out there just loves it.
60 cars, 60 horsepower, wide open throttles and camaraderie. I mean, what's better?
What's better? So if I get getting excited about this and I want to go get a car to start building, what do you look for? Do you want an early car? Do you want a late car? So
you're looking mostly for a late car, 69 and up. Anything 69 and up has a different rear suspension to it. I know we have the trailing arm suspension, and then the 68 and before has the
swing axle
suspension on there. So you're limited to travel in a swing axle.
Plus the camber change
you'll see him come down like this.
Travel.
So some guys still run those. I mean, granted,
do?
There's a few guys out there, some of the classic guys, they love
oval window rag tops.
Unfortunately, they're odd about the rules. You can't get a Super Beetle. It can't be a convertible. It has to be a standard Type 1 Beetle. But 69 realistically for the chassis, 69 and up is realistically where you want to be. I believe 72 or 73 and up is when they switched to a dual port motor, but generally you're getting your motors rebuilt anyway.
And didn't the last years of the Super Beetle go to a strut front end?
I've heard of that.
They went to a Porsche insert in the front.
Okay. So that might
A-arm.
It wasn't A-arm.
Instead of the torsion bar.
It was It was a strut front end, but I think it still kept the beam. It was weird. It was like you couldn't race this car.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. But it's you want a 69 up Beetle. You're gonna want to get a dual port motor, things like that, and you slowly realize what you need to be competitive. The top 10 guys are fast, and then there's kind of everybody else, and they're having a blast too, of course. But the money, I don't want to say it's you know.
So,
but
you need a 20,000. So
What do we
I
need to
want to race
budget?
class 11.
Yeah.
Do I need a $20,000 budget to find a car and
Um,
build it, or do I need a $50,000 budget? Where could I build a class 11 and be competitive? Not with Blake Wilkie,
yeah, just
but with Cameron Brantz, or be competitive with, you know.
yeah. Our buddy, one of our buddies, Josh Felix, he's actually selling 2 of his cars right now. I believe he has one up for. They're raced used cars, but I think they're prepped and good to go. I mean, they're about 20 grand, I believe, plus or minus a little bit. He has 2 cars for sale, but then you'll see guys have cars for sale for 35. I saw one go for sale. One of these guys that used to race trophy trucks, he had a class 11. I think he put his up for like 60,000. And
Yeah, that
so
seems
it's
like excessive.
it does.
I mean,
I don't know what was in the
car.
car.
1600 dual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. You don't know what's in the cars and whatnot, but it definitely varies. Our original budget when we went out to buy, we said we're going to do $5,000 and this is going to build us a whole class 11 car. Let's just say we're more in the motor than we are.
You can't do Pinewood Derby for
yeah.
$5 grand.
And it is a bit, I guess we didn't realize the true cost of being in the class, and on top of that, trying to be competitive is just a whole different level. So now the car we feel is pretty solid. I don't want to say how much we put in the car, but we've over triple, quadrupled our original budget in the car.
And that's. I mean, I think any form of racing, that's the case, right?
Right. 100%.
I think with the relationship you have with Bilstein, I think suspension wise, I mean shock wise, I shouldn't say suspension wise, because obviously there's way more to a suspension than just shocks. But shock wise, I think you have the support to be one of the top guys.
Definitely. We have great support from you guys. And
I'd like to see you kicking ass this year.
That's the goal. I think with the new design we have some potential. We were an Octio testing, we did really well, and every single race, I know if you've seen, every single race we get better and better and better, and the car gets better and better every single time we take it out. And I just think that's driving experience is one of them, but learning the ins and outs of the car and putting the right parts on the car and strengthening it up. And I know with the new Bilstein shocks we have on there with the new reservoirs, just having that oil capacity alone makes such a big difference.
And the compression adjustments.
Yes, the adjustments, it helps exponentially. Yeah. Getting through the rough stuff, like the rough stuff as well as getting through the small stuff. And the shocks don't fade necessarily as fast.
Unless you catch them on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you catch them on fire. Surprisingly, the shocks survived the fire. No damage to the shocks.
Even when you broke the shock mount, the shock survived.
Yeah, that's right. That was
you sent me photos, and I was like, we're gonna have to replace. Oh, that thing looks pretty good.
Yeah, I was genuinely surprised. We dragged that shock for about 3 miles in the dirt, and we through the race course. It was just we didn't really know what it was, and we heard some clanking, and we just started getting real bouncy, and we're like, all right, we'll just kind of limp it back to pit. And once we get back, we realized the whole shock, the shock tab on the lower, well, realistically what it was, the trailing arm plate, the box trailing arm, it like ripped off. A little bit has to do with my welding and a couple other things. We've learned. So that ripped out that bottom shock mount. And that shock mount was just dangling, dragging on the ground, and no nicks on the shaft, no bends. Everything held up. We put it right back on the car, and it ran just as well as it did before. Yeah. I mean, we've abused those shocks in a Class 11 car. They've taken quite a beating. We've beaten them up pretty good, and we have not had one broken part on those shocks.
It's nice because when I first met you was when you sent a standard email to the tech box.
Yeah.
This is how the relationship began.
Yeah.
So tech forwarded it to me because they were a little lost on how to deal with it. So I started communicating via email, and then we started communicating about other stuff and his Toyota and Rangers and we just kind of built a relationship where I'd have a weekly conversation with Cameron about something. Not necessarily the Beetle, but about something. And then I slowly just started sending him parts, right, to try to better what he had. And then we were like, we can't get these any better. So we just brought his front shocks in, which were standard 7100. It's a 1085R. And we increased the port size for the reservoir, for the Blackhawk reservoir. and we increased shaft size. Did we do? Or no, we stayed with the 14 mil piston rod.
Yeah.
But we had to take the can out, send it out, have it, get all the welding done for the larger, I think we went to -10.
I believe so. And it has the Blackhawk style that's on the Razor. The reservoir. So now with those massive reservoirs on there, and it helps a ton. And those right now the shocks can't get any better. We've got realistically the best of the best. The
so
options out
that's
there.
not a part number.
Not really
Finished.
So that's not really.
That's a Junior's brain
right.
custom.
Yeah.
And on the rear, we did a side mount with a 22 mil piston rod, a 12-inch stroke side mount with a bigger shaft. Bigger shaft.
Have we built any more of those, or is that a unique one-off? Cameron Brantz?
Well, it's kind of Cameron Brantz-ish right now.
But you could order one.
If when you start beating Blake, I'm sure people will start coming after us for shocks, and we'll take care of them. Like just like you don't have to be the fastest car to win races. You gotta just be consistent, right?
Yeah.
And
you must first finish to finish first,
right? So my thought is, if the shocks are working great, and you can you don't have the fastest car, but you can get through the rough stuff faster than other guys. You make up time. Just what I was explaining to you with what happened to Schmitty at the Parker. He couldn't get over 90 miles an hour on the straights, on the flats, on the easy stuff, and he was getting past, like he was losing like 5 positions,
and then catching up in the bumps.
And in the heavy stuff, he would gain 5 or 6 positions. So it's all a matter of where you throw your efforts, right? So you don't have to be the fastest car to win race. Fast cars don't always win races.
Yeah. Definitely. And
it's called endurance racing for a reason.
Yeah. And even in class 11, I know generally the finish rate is a little bit less than 50%. I mean, you see that we had at Glen Helen, which is generally one of the less abusive race courses. Generally you're jumping a lot, but we had 35 cars signed up this year at Glen Helen. I think a total of 14 finished the last race. So less than half the cars finished all the racing. And most of those cars not most, but a few of them didn't do the short course racing at all. So it's definitely getting the car across the finish line. So you'll see the top guys, and if they break down, it doesn't matter if their lap time is faster than you. If you do just one more lap than them, then you're ahead of them immediately. Yeah. So it's getting the car across the finish line is the main goal. And then once you get that car across the finish line, you can start to nitpick and figure out where your speed is. And I think with Blake, he's kind of figured that out. You see his car. I've never seen him break down once. He does not break down. He has built that car so strong and so fast that.
But he also is methodical.
He is
very like when I watched him at Crandon, he didn't try to come out the chute as the fastest car.
Yeah.
He got his pace and just started picking them off.
Yeah.
And he was a line guy, man. He picked lines. Everyone was trying to hug inside. He was out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was picking lines that had, whether it was that line was a little rougher and he knew he can get through it, where the other cars maybe couldn't, or there was more traction on that line. But he was just picking them off in the most methodical fashion I've ever seen in a 60 horsepower car. And I've seen him race for years, and he just never comes out of the box wide open. Like he really has, I feel like he has that mentality that I'm going to race 80%, 100% of this race because I want to finish, rather than a lot of guys get overzealous and they come out, 100% whole shot and they break their car.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of it comes from his motocross background, where a lot of motocross is picking the right lines. You might be faster, you might be better, but realistically it's all about whoever picks the best line choice. And so I think
and not crashing.
Yeah, and not crashing.
Ending up in the hospital.
Yeah, and generally, right, in motocross, the first couple laps you're finding the lines, because every time a heat goes out, the track changes. And so I'm sure he knows that, and I know a lot of other guys do too, but he definitely brought that into the bug racing, because he's methodical at the start, and he slowly picks his lines and he picks the right spots, and that's I think that's how he wins, is he's picking the right lines, and he knows when to go hard and when to slow down, and and he knows how the other drivers drive. He knows where to be.
What they're going to do.
Yeah. He knows what every other driver's going to do. Yep. And he knows how to get around every single one of them. And he's a smart guy. He's a great driver. And realistically, he's
confident in his machine.
He's confident. He deserves to be where he is right now with the class.
So what's the future for Class 11? You got any insights on what's going to happen next? Does it just keep growing?
I see it growing even more. And the more the class grows, the more people want to do it. They say, oh, wow, there's 60 guys racing Rage of the River. Or they'll go to Glen Helen and see there's 35 cars on this 4-mile course, and it just looks like a blast, and they see everybody else is doing it. And it seems like you're just having a ton of fun out there. So I think it's going to continue to grow.
It's always been grassroots. So this is like something that you can be competitive and not be broke.
Yes.
And it's like, to me, it's like the last class of off-road racing where it's affordable, right? You can have a day job and race Class 11. You don't have to be an executive. Like you don't have to have all this sponsorship money to race, spec truck or something. You know what I mean? You can do this on your own.
Yeah.
I mean, with a little bit of help from manufacturers here and there. You know what I mean? It's
definitely. And I know with our car, it's basically just a bunch of buddies and we just, cool. we built the car together. My girlfriend helped build the car, and it's how it worked. We built it in our garage. And that's what probably every other team is. It's not some chassis built on a jig,
Right.
It's something you and your buddies can get together, build in your garage and go out and have a good time. And a lot of other race classes, you can't do that. A, because of budget, and B, you don't have the space where...
Or there's the camaraderie. Like, you can't call a Blake Wilkie and say, hey, dude, I'm stuck here. What should I do? Or call Junior, hey, it seems like this rod end that you guys put on here is blowing through the seal head assembly. How can we change this? Yeah. Or, you know what I mean? Or there's guys out there that are willing to still help Class 11 guys. You know what I mean? Whereas I feel like even on the UTV side of things, it's more... I mean, I hate to say it, but it's more cutthroat. It's like, I'm not going to help this guy. I'm racing against him, and I want to win.
Cards.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of secrets, right? There's a lot of... Whereas Class 11, there's no secrets, man. It's like just...
What's the natural progression? Do you go to another class? Do you go to Class 5 after you race Class 11 for a while? Or do you go to Class 1? Or
I mean, it kind of depends where you want to go. My goal, of course, I'm sure everyone wants to race a trophy truck, right? So, later down the road when I'm older, we can afford something like that.
When your body can't take Class 11 anymore.
I mean, obviously that's later down the road, but like I said, we're working on a 2000 truck right now. So that'll be fun to race later down the road as well. But I know a lot of guys will race 1600. I think a lot of guys like to go to Class 10 because Class 10 seems like a fun one to do.
Yeah.
Just those motors scream and they're fast and they just look like a lot of fun. Realistically, I don't know where they want to, like, just the generic Class 11 guy. 1600 is really the next step in performance in the car. But a lot of Class 11 guys, they're not looking for performance. That's not their specific thing, as you know. So.
I feel like Class 11 guys progress as their body deteriorates.
Yeah.
They still want to race, but they're not going to race Class 11 anymore. They can't. They can't physically do it anymore. So they jump into something with more travel, right? So it just makes it a little more comfortable for them. And then they're in there like, why did I ever race Class 11? What the hell was I doing?
Yeah, I know. I have one of my buddies, Ryan. He helps pit with us. We took him on our Razor a while ago, and he's a VW guy. He has a Bug. He's building it right now. And he hopped in a Razor, and he's like, this almost makes off-roading boring after coming from a Bug because it's so smooth. It's so smooth. You kind of just sit there, hold the gas down, and the car will just take it, which...
I watched the same thing happen with Jeep guys where they get to 42-inch tires and all of a sudden you're just idling through whatever. And then they end up getting a YJ with 31s and making it fun again.
Yeah, there's definitely a level you want to be at where you still want to have a ton of fun. And, sometimes having the nicest car, the fastest car doesn't mean you're having the most fun. 100%. And I think a lot of people see that in Class 11.
And I see that in recreational off-road. I see that in professional off-road racing. Trophy trucks, to me, take a lot of the fun out of racing. I mean, everyone wants to be in a trophy truck,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
You know, they want to go 143 miles an hour down the lake bed. That's exhilarating. It's thrilling. But it's just like when you build a Jeep, you put a Hemi in it, you do long arms, you coil over it, and then you go to Moab and you're like, great, what out here is going to challenge me? You know what I'm saying?
You
it's like
start doing the death-defying stuff, and then you're
right. You know,
on the edge.
You and even some of that stuff, like it's takes the challenge out. Like, you know, me and Steve have been in this for a lot of years. So we were doing Moab with Jeeps back before long arm kits, but YJs and early TJ years, you know, and it's like they were getting through that same terrain on 33s and short arms. You know what I mean?
You're almost better off in Moab because everything's so steep.
Right. Right. So you're not using your
Flexi suspensions came along. They were flopping over on the big climbs in Moab because they just didn't have any. The dynamics were all wrong.
Yeah. So that's what we'll call Class 11s, the YJs of wheeling.
Yeah. Square headlights.
Yeah.
Didn't they put They never put square headlights in Beetles, right?
Never. Oh, they did. They had that conversion.
Did they?
Remember that conversion?
I think so.
That they put that fiberglass hood that had square headlights. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
It was absolutely atrocious.
Ground effects, body panel.
Yeah. I remember that. Anyhow.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, Cameron, and giving the audience kind of a take on Class 11.
Yeah, good job.
What it would take.
Best of luck with the season.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Giving our audience a lesson on what it would take, and if they want to take that dive into Class 11.
Yeah, no, I guess my advice would be to just, if you're thinking about doing it, just do it. It's so fun. I don't take back any second of it. As many failures as we've had, as many successes as we've had, the entire time, even after the car's on fire, we're still smiling. Like as rough as it is, like we had a great time out there, and we learn, and it is so fun. You know, budget permitting, it's do it. Yeah. I feel like it's the last, like I said, the last class of camaraderie, the last class. Like in order to race trophy truck, you have to turn your keys over, our spec truck, you have to turn your keys over to Tisco or whoever's going to build it for you and just write a check. Yep. Class 11 is that last little bit where the guys get together, they drink some beers, they have some roll tacos, and they burn parts on the car. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
rolled tacos are called taquitos, aren't they?
They're rolled tacos in Southern California. Oh. Taquitos everywhere else.
Too hard to say.
Costco calls them taquitos. Oh. So we know where you get yours from.
Yeah.
So thanks for giving our listeners a insight on Class 11. We definitely appreciate it. We definitely love the relationship we have with you guys, and we want to see you get on a box this year, and we're going to help you get there. Yeah. Thank you guys. No, thanks for having me on. I'm glad I was able to share my experience with everybody. It's fun.